What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to be taking it into the Crucible with our Strand Hunter using the new exotic boots, Speedloader Slacks. Now these things are new to Lightfall and definitely feel like only a PvP exotic. Just so many other things outshine these inside of the PvE realm that we're making this build specifically for the Crucible, using that air move to suspend enemies while being able to get back our dodge very quickly with that double grapple. Now, like I said, we're building this out heavily for that grapple and mobility, hence the 100 on discipline and 100 on mobility. Now for me, I'm using marksman's dodge with the triple jump and our threaded spike, which has some pretty crazy tracking, and it does sever enemies, so we can hit some pretty gnarly angles on these throws with this inside of the Crucible. Now we're going to be using the grapple for a couple different reasons. It uses that movement inside of Crucible for airborne effectiveness that we get from the boots, and with the grapple we're using some of our aspects and fragments to reload our weapons, as well as we get that double grenade. Now the first aspect that I'm talking about right here is Widow Silk, so we have that additional grenade, and our grapple creates a grapple tangle at that spot, so we can use that to fly back and forth on a spot or something like a zone, like it is this week for Iron Banner. Second off for aspects, we have Ensnaring Slam, so we use the air move to use our dodge ability and slam on the ground to suspend enemies. This can also stop supers, so this is very important for this build, hence why we have that 100 mobility and being able to get back our dodge very quickly. Now there is one thing with those boots: you do have to actually dodge to get the exotic perk to proc. You can't just use this air move as well, so that's a little negative of it, but with the time that it is up, it is a long 15 seconds, plus when you get defeats it extends it, so you can use this in those mean times. Now moving on to our fragments right here, very important is our Thread of Ascent. So when we use our grenade ability, it reloads our equipped weapons, so we can lay an entire clip into an enemy, grapple towards them, and our weapon will be refull of the reserves. So this thing is absolutely nasty, plus it adds additional handling and airborne effectiveness, just adding to that we get of the boots. Now when we move on to our second one, we have Thread of Continuity, so that Suspend and Unravel and Sever all last longer, and we're getting the Sever from our melee, that Unravel from getting the grapple on enemies, and Suspend obviously from using our slam in our aspect. Now third on this list, we got Defeating Suspended Targets, grants us class ability energy, so this is another facet that when we use that slam to suspend targets, getting those defeats will give us back the class ability, being able to just have that up basically consistently with this build. And last but certainly not least, we have Thread of Rebirth, so our strand weapons have a chance to create threadlings, which those things are pretty nasty inside a Crucible, especially when you're doing damage on two people. Get a defeat, that threadling has a chance to get that second defeat for you, so this build comes into nice consideration of everything with our weapons, our abilities, as well as just that exotic and strand synergy of this build. Now when we move on to the weapons here, you can obviously switch it up with a couple different options, but me personally love the Quicksilver Storm for this. Absolutely shreds inside of the Crucible. Some additions you could use is that new Immortal SMG for the strand synergy, Rufus's Fury, an auto rifle from the raid, as well as Perpetualis, which is an auto rifle we can get from the war table. Very good auto rifle in my opinion, so any three of these also take the spot of Quicksilver. Now for me, I'm going with Ganora's Axe. Absolutely love this thing. You could go with a normal shotgun or a sniper, however your gameplay plays, but definitely be using at least one strand weapon in your kinetic, partially because of our mods that we have on and the threadlings that we're creating from our fragments. Then for me, I'm going with this Tracking Chain Reaction Rocket, just because it has that 100 blast radius, which is so nice in the Crucible. Now when we move on to our artifact mods, I'm really only using 2 of these for this Crucible build. This Allied Unraveling, so final blows with that strand weapons, grants unraveling rounds, which is nice for that Crucible when you're absolutely laying into enemies. And then when we get those tangles to spawn, we can shoot them and it does a good amount of damage inside of the Crucible. And when everybody's creating these, they are laying around pretty consistently, so you can use them with that strand weapon specifically and absolutely destroy them for a nice big explosion and damage. So when we move on to our armor mods right here, we're building it out for that 100 mobility and discipline, as well as strand targeting for that nice kinetic weapon, as well as getting back our class ability and grenade as fast as possible. So right here we have that strand targeting, as well as arc targeting for that slug shotgun and our Quicksilver Storm. Now when we move on to our arms right here, we're going to be using Focusing Strike and Strand Dexterity, so grant class ability when we cause damage with our melee attack. So this counts when we also do our grapple towards an enemy and hit them with that melee attack. It counts towards this and procs Focusing Strike, allowing us to get back our class ability even faster, and then that nice Strand Dexterity so we can pull out the Quicksilver Storm a little bit faster, or whatever strand kinetic you're using. Now when we move on to our chest piece right here, 3 unflinching strand aims, so when you are lasering people with that kinetic strand weapon, it barely moves. It feels like when you're getting shot at, so definitely that triple feels really nice on this build. Now moving on to these boots right here with tight fit. Dodging boosts our reload, handling, and airborne effectiveness for us and nearby allies, so this is definitely a team exotic. While this buff is active, final blows and additional dodges increase the buff strength and refresh the timer, maxing out at 5. So this thing gives us a nice addition to all of these stats, especially when it reaches top 5. You get that very easily with dodging first, and then you lead into a fight, so you can get it to stack, and then you can do your slam to suspend, because like I said earlier, when you're using that air move, it doesn't proc tight fit, so it is just a little weird connection between those two. But the way that I was using it is dodge first, you'll get it back very quickly, then you can go into the fight, slam, get those defeats, and it'll keep refreshing that timer and creating those stacks. Now for this, we're using Innervation as well as 2 Absolutions, so when we pick up Orbs of Power, we're going to get all our ability cooldowns back, being able to spam that grapple as well as our dodge, and then on top of that, we're just using one of these to get back our grenade a little bit faster, so we can keep that grapple up and our melees, everything like that, to proc Focusing Strike, etc. And last but definitely not least, we're running that double Reaper on this, so when we dodge, we can get that double spawn of orbs on our next weapon defeat, as well as distribution, so when we're using our ability next to targets, we get back our class ability, so it's a nice perpetual feedback loop for this build, using our dodge, getting defeats to stack that fit tight from our boots, going in there with your melee, grappling them, cause that unraveling, use your suspend, and then it's just easy pickings for everybody. Destroy those tangles, get your artifact mod perks to go off, and this build is so much fun, stopping those supers, having basically those infinite suspends with the dodge being up a lot. Plus, like I said, Quicksilver Storm absolutely shreds, and in my opinion, I like the Perpetualis over Rufus's Fury, but that's just me. Both very good auto rifles to substitute as well in that legendary instead of an exotic. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this build with these new exotic boots. Definitely on the lower tier of other exotics that we got this season for Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, but still a very interesting and fun build to use inside of the Crucible. So thank you guys so much again for watching and support. Truly appreciate it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.